Youths, young men and women, have long been critical to the social change process, lending their voices, images, thoughts and energy towards resolving social problems. Women and Girls Advancement and Resources Center, Wagarc, a youth-led non-governmental organization, taps into this dynamism by designing projects that harness the innate capability of Nigerian youths while showcasing the deep-rooted factors that constrain them. Drawing inspiration from emerging trends and prevailing conversations, Wagarc designs projects to engage its target demography. It is against this backdrop the Youth2Youth Flagship for Social Change initiative was created. Its approach utilizes engagement tools such as youth-led capacity building trainings, internship placement, boot camps, debates, and research competitions. Since young people are more likely to learn and innovate amidst their peers, a safe space was created where young people are inspired to innovate and test solutions to issues such as political apathy, unemployment, insecurity, and other issues that affect active participation in the community.
We identify young people in their own space, and we create a platform for them to meet and rub off on each other. And I say rub off because so most of the time in times past we've seen how it's easy for people to influence people as long as they're in the same space. So we said, okay, let's go out there and let's create this platform where they feel safe, to come in and discuss, to talk about the issues affecting them. Now we're talking about them discussing, not what we feel, not what the government feels is disturbing them, but what they feel personally is disturbing them. So when they come into the space, they highlight the issues, the root cause of the issues that are affecting them, that is detrimental to their development.
The Youth2Youth Flagship for Social Change Network mobilized talented and differently abled young individuals who possess strong and self-driven leadership skills. Together, they devised a means of advocating through compelling art forms. Talented, inspired and driven, yet hounded and held back by rising unemployment, poor education and increased insecurity, the youths are arguably the most disaffected demographic of the Nigerian population.
Of course, in Nigeria, the youth is a higher population. So when you put the highest population of Nigerians to use, when you tactically, pinpoint their locations, and you're able to address their challenges and offer them a platform to be amazing, to come up with, solutions to problems, then of course Nigeria will go from where it is right now to where we hope that it will be.
In choosing art as a medium for this advocacy, Wagarc has adopted a tried and tested medium, from greats like Fela Anikulapo Kuti to young contemporaries like Addis Okoli. Creatives have used art to comment on Nigeria's socio-political issues and call for change. Art. What is the essence of art? Young people experience a range of issues that push and pull, realities that overwhelm their sometimes fragile hold on the constitution of self, our perception of other, our story of us. Discrimination, hunger, stereotypes, insecurity, conflicts, sexual violence. Art serves as a bridge on both an emotional and intellectual level, connecting minds and souls, creating conversations, igniting solutions, spurring people to action, and sparking shifts in paradigms.
Will it stop our voice? No!
And this singular thrust drives the Art for Advocacy Bootcamp to empower and equip youths to use their talents to challenge the ills of society.
Welcome you to Nigeria. I hope you enjoy it. When there is no light for 24 hours, we won't complain. We are used to it. When someone's son dies because they couldn't pay the hospital bills in time, we won't complain. We are used to it. When the innocent go to jail because of the faults in our system, we won't complain. We are used to it. Welcome to Nigeria, my country, my home.
Different perspectives, ideas, and expositions, creativity backed by deep thought, deliberation, and knowledge, a wealth of resource pulled together to birth an alternative. Participants arrive at the boot camp, excitement etched on their faces, driven to broaden their minds and gain experience, a quest to actualize passion.
Hello, my name is Victor Abu. I'm a singer, a songwriter, and an actor.
I'm bulletproof, nothing to lose. Fire away, fire away. Hi, my name is Issa Deborah, aka Melissa. I'm hoping to use my talent and my voice to reach out to young girls out there going through a lot of abuse and molestation.
My name is Tamidia Falabi. I'm based in Abuja, and my core act is writing. And I don't just write. I write, and then I see how I can put my writing into action. So I've seen a lot of issues in my community, and I decided to, okay, the idea is there. I put it down, and then decided to act on it, focusing on children, on the need for proper home bringing, the fact that little children in my community have been exposed to a whole lot of that they are not meant to at a very tender age.
My name is Adegbinga Timileyin Feromi. I'm a writer, more precisely a poet. I'm coming here from Life Camp Abuja. And my expectation coming here was basically to know how to convert my writing skills into being able to advocate for things that I'm passionate about, like police brutality, for example, this ongoing protest. I want to know how to use my writing skills to advocate for people.
My name is Sylvia Madika. I'm a spoken word artist and a poet. I love to talk, and I use my voice for activism. I'm very passionate about gender issues. So when I heard about this bootcamp, I was very excited. And I figured I'm going to use all I know and learn more so that I can project into society.
I feel that art is something we have for a change. Art is something we possess to impact the society positively. And I believe being among young people, being here together to share ideas, working our talents together is an amazing thing, and is going to help us become more active and more socially concerned to the society.
The 5-day event geared towards enabling and challenging participants and validating the outcomes of previous engagements of the Innovation Lab. Facilitators were selected from a wide range of specialists to fine-tune these budding social change activists. The exuberance of young people is at the heart of every great innovation. Through mentorship and internship, their unrefined ideas are fine-tuned into groundbreaking solutions that can be utilized locally and globally. Over the past few years, Wagarc has successfully organized a range of youth-targeted and led activities, consistently impacting knowledge and delivering tools that can help them become even more valuable actors in society.
Wagarc as an organization started off in 2013 with answering the call of or responding to the needs of its immediate community. But sometime in 2015, it was officially registered as a non-profit. And as a non-profit, it had 3 major goals in mind. So the first one was to provide socioeconomic empowerment. The second was to provide psychological help And the third was to drive political participation, of the most marginalized and discriminated groups. So who are those people? These are women, girls, and the youth. We started off this project called Youth2Youth Flagship for Social Change. So it's a project that seeks to harness the innate ability of young people, their exuberant nature. We all know that they're full of life. So what we did, or what we're doing, because we're almost wrapping up with the project, is we identify young people in their own space, and we create a platform for them to meet and rub off on each other. And I say rub off because so most of the time in times past, we've seen how it's easy for people to influence people as long as they're in the same space. So we said, okay, let's go out there and let's create this platform where they feel safe, to come in and discuss, to talk about the issues affecting them. Now we're talking about them discussing, not what we feel, not what the government feels is disturbing them, but what they feel personally is disturbing them. So when they come into the space, they highlight the issues, the root cause of the issues that are affecting them, that is detrimental to their development. And then when they are done addressing this and identifying these issues, they go on with in their awesomeness to try to create a solution.
In your own little way, you can play a part in getting Nigeria to where it should be. Let's be realistic. If you don't believe it is fine, how many people believe that you can play a part in getting Nigeria to where it needs to be? Oh God, please cut yourself. You guys are honest. Jeez, that is impressive. It's true. We need to renew our mindset about what we can do as young people. Because we play about things as serious as what we are passionate about. Why would I take you seriously if you are laughing? Why? I will laugh with you, and before you know it, I give you recharge card money, and the story has ended. And then you go home, you have failed.
One of the first tools that we mobilized, that we used as an organization, was voice diaries. So this is where we try to get raw data from young people. We used, of course, we mobilized young people to go out there to capture the voices of young people. What was the most pressing issue that is affecting them, and basically they came back with a lot of data. But of course, it was in the form of a voice note, because we noticed that we observed that most Nigerian youths wouldn't want to be caught on camera. They're not really comfortable about that, and that's why we mobilized the young people to use whatever recording device they could get. And then when these voice notes came back, of course, with the help of young people, they were analyzed. And this was the first time we started seeing that there was a trend. A lot of young people were unemployed. It was either they were unemployed or they were underemployed. They were working way more hours than they were getting paid. Some of them, most of them, bulk of them were being owed like salaries for a lot of months. So this was where this goes on to say that, unemployment has been an issue, and I feel like every time we send out these young people, that's one issue that will always come back. The interesting thing with how we work at Wagarc is that we work based on emerging trends. So emerging trends based on issues that affect our target beneficiaries. And we do that practically by researching on these trends. So when we do research, we go on ahead to create and to design projects that would enable us to address the said challenges that have just emerged. And most of the time, the beautiful thing about the concept is we actually work with the beneficiaries as the drivers. So what I mean by drivers is, instead of taking hold of the project, we hand over the project implementation to them. So that way we give them full ownership. We hand over ownership to them so that they feel like they are part of the process.
With funding from Voice, Wagarc has helped finance several projects. One of their favorites is the Rethinking Our Environment initiative, a project developed by a young graduate of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Enugu State, whose vision for a better environment backed by clear idea and strategy would have languished without the crucial financial support and encouragement provided by Wagarc.
The consciousness of waste disposal was going down, so we, with support from Wagarc, we organized a Rethinking Our Environment campaign. So it was scheduled for 2 days. One was the awareness. So we invited creatives, not just from ourselves, but from within the university, to come and talk about waste disposal from the point of view of poetry, from the point of view of drama, from the point of view of recycling. So we had participants from pharmacy, lecturers, from microbiology, coming to talk about these things and relating it to art as it may be.
The outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria in March 2020 led to a nationwide lockdown and ban on all public gatherings. This meant many youths would be out of jobs, leading to an increase in unemployment, hunger, and insecurity. Wagarc continued to engage the youth using online platforms to inspire them to channel their issues and grievances to the proper authorities.
What we did during COVID, when we couldn't be with the students physically, was to engage virtually, and we did that via WhatsApp. So we tried to identify young abled people who were seeking to have their voices heard, and we tried to amplify that voice through various social media accounts. So what we did was, whenever there was an emerging issue, we brought it up on the WhatsApp group and we asked them, guys, this is happening in Nigeria. What's your take? First of all, we try to get their take from the standpoint of a young person. And then we now tell them, okay, so now that we have identified, for instance, police brutality and the fact that palliatives were not getting to certain groups, the most people who needed it most, what's the youth way of addressing this particular issue? And then they go flooding, they just take on Twitter to just, let's say, profile solutions. So they tag the supposed, so if it's a police force, for instance, they go to Nigerian police force Twitter handle and they say @police NG, we think this is the way you should actually tackle this issue of insecurity that is coming up as a result of the dash and the likes of them.
Another activity I like to talk about is the activity of voice ambassadors. So voice ambassadors are basically young people who stand out in their own spaces, that are mobilized to aid the affairs of the Voice Lab, to aid also the product of the Voice Lab. So what they do basically is they play a very huge role. They played a very huge role, I would say, in all our activities, because the truth is, who better to mobilize young people than young people? So young people who are already leaders in their spheres were recruited, and they were identified, of course, and recruited, and they were given a token of $250,000 to carry out a project in their communities. And so for the first cohort, we identified 4 extraordinary individuals, and we tasked them with, of course, doing what they do best. Some of them trained, a bulk of them actually found out that capacity building of some sort was what was needed for most young people. So we had a particular lady who was blessing. She tried to, she actually organized a dialogue between stakeholders and people living with disability. And during this event, it was just so moving to see how people living with disability, their plight, and how they felt discriminated or marginalized, or how it was difficult for them as individuals to access public buildings and facilities and the likes of them. But I was really proud of that particular project, because it's one topic that I don't think people are really comfortable talking about. So it was good to see that she owned the project and went out of her way to invite stakeholders and other government representatives, to a public dialogue. And of course, there was another project that another voice ambassador carried out, which is Word Noting, a student of UNN that identified a lack of cash, I would say, lack of liquid cash among students as a weapon. I say as a weapon because, of course, poverty is weaponized, and in this case now, it predisposes young people to drug abuse, prostitution, and in some cases suicide, And so when she identified that most young people need something like a source of income even while they're in school, she decided to utilize her the skills she had acquired in the past to teach them arts. But the beauty of her project was the fact that it was not just her now. Say, for instance, she was a hair maker. She decided to mobilize other young people who are, either DJs, because of course we know that all these little, skills, they provide money. So makeup and like anything that was needed. She just identified students who could do the particular art, and they were willing to volunteer to teach other students, so that everybody can make easy cash while in school. Of course, I cannot wrap this up without talking about a particular tool that we use, also called research competition. So this is a biannual activity that seeks to encourage young people to research, because as a country, you would agree with me that we are deficit when it comes to data. We don't have information. There's no storehouse anywhere. So the research competition was used as a tool to get young people to go out there and research. Let them, explore that innate ability, that innate journalist ability that they have. And in so doing, most of them went out there to have conversations. And whether we like it or not, knowingly or unknowingly, they were already challenging their peers on the street, in school, to think higher than where they were. The first one that they did, of course, highlighted deep-rooted issues that were causing youth marginalization and discrimination. Issues like unemployment, insecurity, police brutality, peer pressure, of course, drug abuse, and the likes of them. But the most prominent among all these issues was unemployment. And then, of course, we started asking them, what do you think? What's the root cause of unemployment? How did we get here as a people, as a nation? And in answering that, a lot of them, had so much to say about how, family and parents had a serious role to play as well, and of course how the society is just not an enabling environment for a young person who is striving to do the bits they can do. The second research competition sought to find out the link between unemployment, which was the most prevalent issue identified during the first cohort of research competition, with capacity building. So how are young people, how are we making sure that they are market ready, and in so doing, we had an ample amount of entries this time around. Of course, I feel like with each year we get better in what we do. So this time around, there were so many young people who applied from different schools, because our target beneficiary this time around were undergrads.
A brazen fellow, the Wolfpack Alpha, he tests the waters. He tastes the nectar. He dips his talons into the till. He twirls it round and round, and he dips it to his tongue. Then he turns to the back and his mouth and says, the meat is sweet and is ripe for the taking. So they dive. They come running, they strike. They're sinking their teeth, their claws, and their pipes, and they suck, and they suck, and they suck till you're dry. They call it kill and dry. Guard your virtue.
Talking about edutainment, edutainment is an advocacy tool that, of course, seeks to address social norms through art. And so this is one of the tools that the Youth2Youth Flagship for Social Change decided to adopt as a way of sensitizing the community or the society that they live in without without provoking or evoking violence or anything that antagonizes. So it's a subtle way to send your message across without anybody. It's just a play. It's just a song, you know. Art has always had a way of getting away with anything, you know, because we can claim that it's not real, but you have succeeded in passing your message and intervening in some cases. So yeah, very recently, at UNN, we adopted the approach in addressing issues like gender-based violence, where students went on the streets and, you know, they did a couple of flash mobs, and then they of course went around the compound with a van, sensitizing people on why gender-based violence is counterproductive and why they believe that the female folk deserve audience, deserve respect, and, you know, deserve equal participation in elections and policy shaping. Well, I see. Okay, so in driving policies, basically.
It was therefore no surprise that the 2020 bootcamp was crafted around edutainment with the theme Art for Advocacy, aimed at harnessing youth's talents and passion in advocating on issues affecting them.
Last but not the least, I'll say one of the activities, of course, is the bootcamp. And during the bootcamp, most times we also try to identify young people in their spaces, like in their young people who are exceptional, you know, young people who are not just exceptional, but that are willing to go out there and pass on the baton. So far, we've had 2 boot camps. The first one was just a boot camp on leadership. Fast forward to where we are right now, which is a boot camp for arts for advocacy, art for advocacy. Why art for advocacy? Well, I'll say art because in the ages past, art has always been a useful and effective tool in advocating for change.
A set of routine activities have been created to run on a daily basis. It kicks off with the volunteer coordinators in team bonding exercises just before orientation.
Basically, the purpose of the Energizer is to help for team bonding. The Energizer helps most especially when you're meeting people outside from different parts of the nation. So it helps you to understand different people. It helps you to be able to know the purpose of teamwork. Even if you're not doing the teamwork, but when you're meeting people for the first time, you'll be able to know how to work with them, how to speak with them, and do other things with them.
Everybody is born for a purpose. So if you're doing what you feel fulfilled with, God is going to help you to go towards that path. If that's what you were born for, I feel like you should do what you were meant to do. And serving people is such a great fulfillment to me. And I feel like when you're doing that, things will come to you.
This fear is dying without making an impact on the world. I feel like we all have that fear. You know, the average human being comes, like, has that thing behind your head of, what am I doing today? What if this all ends today? What will I have even done? Have I done anything? So I think that's a healthy state. That's a healthy state to be at, because it helps jack you up to go beyond your ordinary wake up, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I feel like this person is full of heart. You have a lot that you feel like you can give to the world, you know. And if the opportunity presents itself, in this case, I would even say you have to go out there and take that opportunity, because these days opportunities, you know, unfortunately they seem rare, especially to young people in Nigeria.
These are shallow things. I do not have any here.
I don't know who this person is, but I'll advise her to get a fear. Yes, I know why I'm saying so, because fear helps us too. The moment you don't have any fear, you're comfortable. When you're comfortable, you have no control.
So you don't have to use fear as a motivation. when it becomes that, it becomes an addiction. You always look for fear to motivate you.
Categorize fear into positive fear and negative fear. Yeah? So positive fear propels us to take on challenges and overcome. Negative fear takes us down. Yeah?
What's going on? You're not doing right. Okay, so next person. Okay.
6 topics have been chosen for this year's boot camp: advocacy, art for advocacy, storytelling, theater or edutainment, public speaking, and inclusive neighborhood spaces, INS.
The first activity during this boot camp, let's say the first session, which was advocacy in itself, was designed to showcase how the journey of an advocate is. Like, young people here needed to understand that the stakes to be an advocacy is high, but of course, with diligence and perseverance, there's a lot of good fruits for them to reap. If, pardon me to say, Hamza Lawal, for instance, could get to where he got to, and he didn't even have, I would say he was not an artistic individual. They should just try to envision what they, or the level they can get to, being that they are artistic. They can definitely, as in, go above and achieve way above what he was able to achieve.
Our choices define our individual experiences. These participants share the personal stories that have led them in their activism journey.
So basically, my poetry advocates for Pan-African traditions, African philosophy, African culture, and the general effect of how we are portrayed as a people in the global community. I believe that as a poet or an artist, going into writing or whatever field of creativity you adopt is like accepting to be an activist, because as creatives we tend to see things differently. Our eyes are always looking for what is wrong or what is right. We are conscious of our environment, conscious of the society, conscious of how people relate and how they interact with each other. So in being an artist, you just understand that advocacy is a part of you. It's something that comes out naturally. You are advocating for, you just have to advocate for something. That is what art is all about. I believe that the role of art in social advocacy is extremely amazing empowerment, because as everything creative, it is structural, and it helps us reform things, it helps us change things, it helps us understand things, and this gives structure and order.
It's very hard to live with a disability in Nigeria especially. So I had bow legs growing up, so it was really much harder for me to walk. It was very hard. And there are also people discriminating against me a lot. Like, whenever I walk, they would be mocking me and all that. And there was this point where I went to a mall and there was a little boy. He saw me and he ran away. So at a point I became scared of leaving my house. So at school, at primary school, at a point I started to urinate on the seats, the chairs at school. And my teacher always used to rebuke like what I did. She didn't know why I did it. She didn't even care to ask why I did it, but she would always talk to my mom about it. But she never actually cared. She never actually said, okay, how can we help with this situation? The mental challenge it brings, because there is fear, there is anxiety, there is depression. Because I've suffered a lot of those things, a lot, even to the point of suicidal thoughts. And your parents don't even know, they are just there, they don't know that these things affect deeply. Like sometimes when I'm like, please, can I go out with you, mommy? And she'll be like, no, you can't go out with me because it will stretch your leg. At a point, I thought my family members were actually ashamed of going out with me. I began to pick up advocacy from then through poetry. It just came naturally, so I used to write about these issues, mental health awareness and disability inclusion, love, and other things.
My story is diverse. I have like plenty stories to recount. Like I can remember traveling every year for Christmas with my dad and my brothers, and having to stop at every checkpoint because of SARS operatives that will ask first for particulars and then act like they were checking for something in the car and then collect small payments, tokens of 50 to 20 naira for the pass. I can remember the SARS official that stopped my dad. I started harassing him because of it was seeming like he told him he had all the particulars and he still wanted to collect the sum of 1,000 from my dad. And I also remember my mom telling us when we were younger our uncle that died in a beer parlor because of stray bullets from SARS officials that were walking around our region in Enugu State. And I could also recount that the way she mentioned it, like from a point of helplessness where nothing was done, it was like the matter passed under the bridge and he died like that. So since then I've reasoned that most stories are underrepresented or overlooked because nobody could tell them. Nobody was bold enough to bring this out because of the repercussions. So I hope to use this my speech writing to be able to tell stories of countless Nigerians who can't put their life, their pain on paper.
These are issues that we are grappling with, currently. Young people have found their voice, especially young people in the creative space. And art for activism, simply means using all the genres of the art as a vehicle for advocacy. Young people want to advocate for issues that are affecting them.
What we sought to do in day 2 is to do a session on art for advocacy. So art for activism, so art, A-R-T, for activism. And during this session, we already wanted them to start seeing, what their art can do out there, So this session was taken by Ezenwa Okoro, and I would say he's a well-renowned man who has in the past, left a track record of helping young people to see their inner genius.
When Chiamanda comes to mind, you think of feminism. Yeah. When Lucky Dube comes to mind, when Fela comes to mind, you think of country wahala. So I think that was what he was trying to tell us. What do you do? And how can what you do define the issues of society we are trying to make up?
Now, entertainment education simply means the ability of the creator, you as an artist, me as a director, you as a singer, your ability to add parasocial messages into your entertainment program.
Edutainment, of course, was a tool that we had explored in the past when we started, with the students at University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Yes. So we thought about how, in its own way, edutainment went a long way to highlight what we're doing as an organization. So we said, we're inviting creatives. What better time to try to utilize this tool than right now? And so we called up the facilitator, who is Dr. Ike. He doesn't like to be called Dr. Weya. Dr. Ike and Erojikwe, alias Ikuku.
There's a reason I'm a performance activist, because I believe in the power of play and performance for human development. And in doing the music, in doing the dance, in doing the visual arts, in doing all of those things, they are building life skills, right? When you're teaching young people how to act, you're actually teaching public speaking skills.
The session we had on public speaking, which was day 4, I wish that one of the participants was here saying this right now, but because they had a lot to say. It was a session, it started, the idea that we had when we said public speaking was every good advocate has to be a very good speaker. You have to be confident, you have to stand for what you what you believe in. And that's why most times when you see people who advocate or pictures of advocates, you see that it's even with someone putting their hand up, because that's, you're taking it from the belly right here all the way to the top. I will not be silent. So we wanted the young people to understand the importance of enunciating, like to be able to drive power through words.
We need a change of leadership. We need a change of leadership. Oracle or not oracle? Oracle or not oracle?
Inclusive neighborhood spaces, INS for young people. Spaces are opportunities for people to meet together, to learn, to share, to talk about problems in the community, and also to plan ways of solving these problems as young people. You know, young people have quite a lot of responsibilities to their communities, and the young person have that opportunity also to be developed from that point, you know, of learning and also unlearning and relearning over time. As young leaders as well, that responsibility is always on us to ensure that we solve local problems.
This model was created by an Indian man, and of course, when he created this model, he believed in the power of young people who share a similar vision. You know, young people who stay in the same vicinity, in the same neighborhood or space, and how if these young people can come together, they can, in their own very little way, spark of change. There was a session on storytelling and curating. Of course, you will agree with me that storytelling has a way of getting people to listen. It leaves, a mark on people. You tell someone a story today and there's no way that they will ever forget it. When they see you, they associate you with the story you've already told them. And so see, this session, which was facilitated by an amazing young woman, Mezo, was a session that sought to help them arm storytelling, you know. So arm it in what sense? As in arm it in a way that helps them, arm it in a way, I would say, that helps them go out there, and when they identify an issue, they can create a story out of it and then tell the story in a way that would get people to listen. And then afterwards, the story, we moved on to the importance of curating, which also is tied to storytelling. You know, if you're a storyteller, then definitely you should be able to put pen to paper and curate, come up with your lines. What do you want to do? How is what you're saying going to evoke, you know, an emotion from your audience? Being able to identify your audience as well, which is a very important session. So this session really helped them, because this was where they were now able to start putting pen to paper and coming up with a play.
Following intense deliberations, participants settle on the life of an average Nigerian youth as the theme to drive their performance. Within a few hours, the talented and highly motivated group had composed a theme song and initiated rehearsals for the play.
For the past 7 days that we've been in camp, we have literally made efforts, and we've been conscious about handing over the leadership mantle to the young people. The mantle was completely handed over to them, of course, when they were called upon to create their own scripts, to create their own theme song. And it was just amazing. I say honestly, with all honesty, that it was just really amazing to see how these young people led themselves in an orderly fashion. And it's worth noting that, as opposed to what most people think, that young people cannot lead, and young people cannot, well, I say young people cannot lead with young people because they will not probably respect each other and get the goal that they wanted to get. I would say the assumption that young people cannot lead young people is definitely wrong, because in 7 days, these young people, in fact, in 7 days, these young participants have done way beyond what can be achieved in a whole year. And truth be told, is I feel like if they can do this in 7 days, just imagine what they can do with a whole year, like bringing out original content. Take for instance the theme song. So we tasked them with coming up with a theme song in 30 minutes. And honestly, when we were saying 30 minutes, we just wanted to push them to see how far they would go, and they blew our minds.
Everybody say Alas! We say what we believe is right. To make a change, Mama say Alas! Say for what we hold.
When we told them to come up with a script that depicts a day in the life of an average Nigerian, a day in the life of a young Nigerian or an average youth, and it was fun to see how they were split into 4 groups. And then we did that because we wanted to get difference. When they say, when creatives are gathered, when there's too much juice in the room, it might just end up, blowing over. So we decided to split them into 4 groups, and we tasked each group with coming up with a synopsis, like the artistic people would like to call it. So, which is a summary of what their play would be like. And in 45 minutes, they each came up with a synopsis, and eventually the beauty of it is we ended up merging all 4 ideas to come up with the last play. And when I say we, I don't mean like we as the organizers, of course, that the young people took ownership. As a matter of fact, the play itself was directed by a fellow participant. So I would just like to say thank you to Voice. It's organization like theirs that make us push beyond our boundaries. And they've given us wings to fly, and do what we love to do, which is ensuring that resources get to the most marginalized and discriminated people in the community.
They call themselves the Art Bureaus, a portmanteau of the words art and agberu, the latter being a local lingo for street hustler. The story of survival told by a mother to a son.
Mommy, I don't understand this thing. Mommy, I don't understand this thing. The last time you say you fix it. When I say just put common Wi-Fi, you say you fix it. You fix it. You fix it. All the time you fix it. You fix it. You sit down here doing nothing and you're telling me I don't want to see you.
Stop with this nagging of I didn't do anything. Stop it. What is it? I don't blame you. It's not your fault. I mean, your father died fighting so that we can all have what we have now. So it's okay for you to stand there and tell me that I'm doing nothing.
Mom, I'm sorry, Mom. Mom, I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry. I guess I was provoked beyond endurance. I didn't mean to raise my voice at you, Mom. I'm sorry, Mom. Mom, did you just say Mom, the man that left here was he my father?
I'll tell you the story.
ITT International Tiffin International Tiff International Tiffin. Oh.
This is a symbol of our matador.
Yes!
Will it stop our voice? No! Will it stop our voice? No! Will it stop our voice? No!
Let it try.
Let it try.
Let it try.
Let it try.
Let it try. Let it try. Let it try. Let it try.
and my two brothers were from different mothers, adopted by your father, and that's what binds us together. Papa tell us, nobody be senior, you all are equal, you all are equal, but my children kill their children, and their children kill my children. We've tried to make this better, but disagreements just they enter. Do you hear the children cry? Do you hear the children fighting? Do you see the children dying? We've got to make this change.
In the telling, she narrates the culture of abuse, the voicelessness of victimhood, ending in an act of triumph as one singular individual pushes back against their abuser, though ultimately losing themselves.
Now programming the feed me and my family. Imagine say I marry immediately after my youth service. Easy. And you know say I don't dey build house. They prepare for. Hey, if you want soft life, now programming the way. I sit down for my house. They make money for my love and my baby. Baby, I can't make money for you and oh, for your sweet wife. Baby, I can't wait. I can't wait. See, my explain. Our house goes to set. We go leave this landlord come out for this house. This nonsense house, what it be said? I promise you, before we deliver this baby the next 2 months, our house goes set.
Daddy, how boy? Take it back! Daddy, how boy?
Officer, why would you buy into my house and
Daddy, how boy? Laptop, evidence. When Yahoo boy, how you run to jail?
You enter my house and you harass me.
It's easy.
I know my rights. And I will not allow you to intimidate me. Listen, I will not allow you to intimidate me. Robot nonsense.
And that was it, my son. Son, when your father died, we fought for this nation. We fought corruption.
Because this country must be greater and you must work hard. But to enable hard work deliver consistent results, a young activist must be practically equipped. The potential of Nigeria's greatest human resource still lies untapped as a result of stifling factors such as corruption, insecurity, poor educational system, and despite countless interventions by government, INGOs and CSOs aimed at empowering the youth and harnessing their innate capability to drive innovation and social change, we have barely scratched the surface. It therefore becomes evident that the government needs to take steps to professionalize skill acquisition programs by implementing futuristic policies and restructuring the school curriculum to accommodate the digital trends.